Hey there, how are you? Or as many a spiritual director ask, how is it with your soul? I feel like I have been on quite the emotional roller coaster. And truth be told, I don't remember now the last time I didn't feel that. Like I could go back and say maybe it was before 2020. But then when I stop and think about it, I was like, no, it was before that. And so I struggle with trying to remember when I first started feeling like I'm on an emotional roller coaster. On the one hand, I think I've always been a deep feeler. I've definitely been a deep crier. Anyone who has known me from childhood knows that I will cry at the drop of a dime. I think I've embraced that part of myself in a different way in this season. So, I always say that tears are the tangible reflection of God's grace pouring out and or God's presence. And so I've embraced that a part of my emotional embodied response. But I've been feeling so much specifically right now because of all that's going on in the world. And when I mean the world, I mean the world. I am based in the state of Texas in the United States of America. And I live in Houston, or the Houston metro area, which is now the most diverse city in the U.S. But I care and am connected to so many people and communities that extend far beyond the borders of this space that I call home. I am also someone who is very clear that this place that I call home is home. So whether it be Texas or the United States, a American experience is part and parcel to who I am. When people often talk about leaving, I jokingly think to myself, or sometimes I say it out loud, is like, I don't know where else I would want to go, A, because this is home, and B, I want my home to be a place where I feel like good things can happen. And there are good things that happen every day. There are good people, there are good experiences, good communities. There are good things that happen every day. And there are also things that happen every single day that are tragic and that harm communities and cause trauma. And so we are always, or I am always, living in the both and. And I'm a person of hope, which seems to be quite a foolish thing nowadays, right? So hope is this thing that's an intangible, even though it creates a tangible orientation in your life, right? So when I am hopeful, the posture that I embody mentally, emotionally, physically is one way. When I'm not hopeful, that posture is another. So even though hope is an intangible, that, it's about the belief or the trust in something that is yet to come, but you don't know when, but you trust. And because of that trust, then you act and orient a certain way. Like, that's important. I feel like I might be getting off track, but here we go. I am also a person of deep faith, and faith in a particular story of the divine, of a divine being. And that faith has expanded and morphed and shifted and deepened and widened over my 43 years on this earth. And it's interesting because the more that has expanded and shifted, the more that I become both more expansive and also very clear about what's at the core. And I am the daughter and granddaughter and great-great-granddaughter. I am the offspring of legacies and lineages that include the enslaved story of Black folks in the United States of America. And that includes the enslaved story of Black folks in the diaspora in the Caribbean. And I am of a family of immigrants and a family of those who were part of the Great Migration. And then, so I'm a Black woman who embodies multitudes. And so my feelings are big and varied and wide. And I think that they're valid in all of that because of what I just shared. But I also think that our feelings are valid even if they're not. Our feelings are valid even if the feelings aren't fact. So I think everything is about paradox. Everything is about that. Many years ago, when I'd gone back to school and I had taken a break when I was an undergrad, but now at some point I fell out of college. That's a video for another time. But I had gone back to school and my degree was in sociology. And I learned then formally in college about the social institutions that make up the fabric of a society, of a civilization, in modern times, right? So they would talk about 5, right, social institutions: education, the government, the military, economics, the family, religion, right? Like these core organizing communities that help a society function. And I recognize that for me, the social institution that I was most connected to, well, it was like education and government, but really it was religion. And not just religion as a science and something that we're thinking about, but religion, faith, spirituality, theology, which are all different, even though a lot of times they're operating in the same space. And that focus on that social institution then became the lens through which I understood everything, right? And or made sense of the things happening, and or understood where that lens helped me understand where my unique contributions were to be made. So even as I've run from it and tried not to be in it, right? Like the realm of religion is the place that I come back to. So as I am holding all of these truths about who I am, and as I am experiencing this moment in history, all of that comes to bear. My commitments, my values, my identity, the things happening in the world, the people I love dearly from all over, the places I have been where I see firsthand the suffering. And I think the thing that is standing out to me right now the most after watching the Democratic National Convention this week is that I am always interested in the third way. My faith, my theological commitments, my spirituality, my religious orientation and dogma leads me to always be seeking the third way. I have struggled with what I know to be the truth of the American experiment. And I think what was so hard for me to watch at some point this week was this reality that the country that I really do love and call home has ways of being that are just a part of how it operates. And yes, we can push back and want something different and advocate for something different. But I realized that American imperialism and a militaristic orientation and the commitment to law and order, and thinking about something being lethal at our hands, and a support of an entire, not just of one, but our role in so many spaces of supplying weaponry and the hardware that then wreaks havoc on whole populations, on whole governments, on whole regimes, on whole groups of people. That is the country that's home. That's who it's always been. And so, because multiple things are true, I'm watching the handover to a Black, Jamaican, Indian, American woman who went to an HBCU, who pledged a sorority in the Divine Nine, who is brilliant, who's very smart, who is clear-eyed, recognize that she is a product of this American enterprise, as am I. And my faith compels me to look at the third way. And the third way for me is to continually ask the question of who is the least of these in this moment, in every moment, if we want to keep ourselves honest. Who is the one whose power has been stripped and or suppressed or oppressed? Who is the one who is on the margins? Who is the one who is experiencing suffering? Who is the one who and one could say we all are. And my call, my work is to continue to seek a third way. And not judge, but pay attention to the multiplicity of emotions. And no, I don't want to say that. Third way.